Crisis Core Remake having just released for consoles, PCs, and the Switch, I've been all in on Final Fantasy VII again. With that in mind, I figured we would trek back to the world of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is very much available and playable on the go via the Steam Deck. So, on this week's edition of the Performance Series, we're diving into Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrade. Now, to get started, Remake Integrade is the enhanced version of the Final Fantasy VII Remake with the added scenario for Yuffie and Intermission that is currently only available on PC and PlayStation 5. And before getting into performance, I tested both PC versions of Integrade on the Steam Deck. The original Epic Games Store version via Linux's Heroic Game Launcher, as well as the Steam native version that released later. It is worth noting that you will get a noticeable difference in performance between the two, favoring the Steam native version. But let's start with the version that released on the Epic Games Store. You get a mostly stable 30 FPS depending on where you are. The internal areas like the bombing mission from the intro keeps the FPS up around the 30s and 40s even if you lower the shadow quality but keep textures up on high. It's when you get to the more open areas where the drops happen. Once you get access to the big map of the slums around 7th Heaven, you'll get a lot of drops into the 20s with lows around 23. You'll also get a lot of stutters as you play the game, which is an unfortunate fault of the PC version of this game not being as well optimized as it should have. To keep this version stable, you have to drop everything down. Textures and shadows on low, resolution down to 720. You're not going to be able to keep the FPS above 30 at all times, but it'll be stable enough to be playable. Now the Steam version is a completely different story. Maybe it's because of the different environment from the Heroic Games launcher, but everything across the board is just better with the Steam native release. To give an example, the interior areas with textures on high, like the Guard Scorpion boss fight, the Epic Games version gets about 30s and 40s on frame rate, but when we transition over to the Steam version, the same settings get us constant frame rates in the 50s and 60s. And that improvement is true for open areas as well. You'll still need to drop everything down with texture quality on low and resolution at 720, but if you do, the frame rate will basically never drop below 30 and will actually mostly stay in the 40s and even 50s. Though it will fluctuate a lot and not stay in one spot. So if you want stability, just go into the Steam Deck settings and turn on that fancy 40 Hz mode that maxes the frame rate out at 40. And it will pretty much stay at 40 probably 80-90% of the time and have that faster smoothness than 30 will give you. Now in this state, it won't look fantastic. There will be a good bit of fuzz and blur, especially when you have it plugged into a TV. But if you play it in handheld mode, it'll still look pretty decent, especially for what it is, essentially a PlayStation 5 game in portable form. Granted, a PS5 enhanced PS4 title, but still. And that's all I gotta say about performance, so let's go into battery life, which is actually a little surprising. If you run the game with the brightness maxed out, you're gonna get about 2.5 hours, give or take, and that'll shoot up to 3 hours on lower brightness. I mean, it's not absolutely outstanding for the Steam Deck, but more than I expected considering what game it is. So, would I recommend Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrade to Steam Deck users? If you can take a bit of fuzz and blur and can buy the Steam version, absolutely. It plays pretty well, all things considered, and getting that 40 FPS lock for almost the whole game will give you a great experience. And that's all I have for you today and this week. I'll be back soon with more reviews and Steam Deck performance. As always, thank you for watching and have a great day.